For thousands of years, the galaxy feared a single prophecy. Ancient records spoke of a child who would be born beneath a dying star. A child destined to bring the end of empires. A child whose existence would change the fate of every civilization in the known universe. Most aliens believed it was nothing more than an old legend. A myth. A bedtime story. Until the day the prophecy came true. On the capital world of Orlean Prime, scientists gathered inside the most secure medical facility in the galaxy. The moment the child was born, every alarm in the building activated. Energy readings exploded across their screens. Machines overloaded, sensors failed, and a pulse of unknown energy spread across dozens of star systems. Within hours, the entire galaxy knew the impossible had happened. The child of stars had been born. Fear spread faster than the news itself. Governments declared emergencies. Military fleets were mobilized. Religious leaders called it the beginning of the end. Some demanded the child be destroyed immediately. Others argued that killing an innocent infant would make them monsters. The galaxy became divided, but nobody cared about the child himself. Nobody asked what he wanted. Because he was only a newborn. And already the entire galaxy feared him. 3 days later, fear became violence. An extremist faction attacked the facility. Explosions ripped through the city. Fire consumed entire districts. Security forces fought desperately to stop the attackers. Inside the chaos, a single escape pod launched from the burning complex. Inside that pod was the child. No family, no guards, no protection, just a terrified infant drifting into the darkness of space. The pod vanished, and with it disappeared the most feared child in galactic history. Years passed. Search fleets combed thousands of systems. Bounty hunters chased rumors. Governments spent fortunes looking for the child. But nobody found him. Most assumed he had died long ago. The truth was very different. The pod had traveled far beyond major trade routes. Far beyond populated systems. Far beyond where anyone expected. Eventually it crashed on a frozen moon inside a forgotten region known as Sector 4. The impact nearly destroyed the pod. Snow buried half the wreckage. The life support systems began shutting down. Inside, the child cried alone. For the first time in his life, nobody was coming to save him. Hours passed. The moon grew colder. The pod grew darker. Then a signal appeared. A small exploration vessel detected the crash. The ship belonged to a human. His name was Daniel Carter. A retired explorer. A man who had spent most of his life charting unknown regions of space. After decades of adventures, Daniel had left civilization behind. He lived alone in Sector 4. Far away from politics. Far away from wars. Far away from everyone. When the distress signal appeared on his screen, he almost ignored it. Almost. But curiosity had always been stronger than common sense. So he changed course. Several hours later, Daniel landed beside the wreckage. The pod was damaged beyond repair. He forced open the frozen hatch. Then stopped. Inside was a child. Not human. Not any species he recognized. Just a frightened infant staring back at him. The child looked weak, hungry, cold, and completely alone. Daniel checked the area. No rescue ships. No emergency beacons. No signs of parents. Nothing. Only endless ice. The old explorer sighed. "Well," he muttered, "I guess you're coming home with me." The child blinked. For the first time in his life, someone smiled at him. Years passed. The galaxy continued searching. Meanwhile, the child grew up in a small human outpost on a frozen moon. Daniel named him Orion, not because of any prophecy. Not because of destiny. Simply because he liked the name. Orion learned quickly. Faster than anyone Daniel had ever seen. At 5 years old he understood engineering manuals. At 7 he helped repair damaged ship systems. At 9 he was studying scientific archives for fun. At 10 he could solve problems that confused advanced computers. Yet despite his intelligence, Orion often felt lonely. Every mirror reminded him, he wasn't human. One evening he finally asked the question he had been carrying for years. "Daniel." The old explorer looked up. "Yeah, kid, where do I come from?" Daniel froze. He had always known this moment would arrive. Sooner or later every child asks who they are. The problem was that Daniel genuinely didn't know. He sat beside Orion. You came from a crashed pod. That's all. That's all. Orion looked away. You don't know my family. No. My species. No. Anything. Again Daniel shook his head. Silence filled the room. Finally Daniel placed a hand on Orion's shoulder. You know what I do know. What? You're my son. Orion looked at him. Daniel smiled. Family isn't always about where you come from. Sometimes it's about who stays. Orion never forgot those words. Years continued to pass. Unknown to them, the galaxy had finally found a clue. Deep inside an abandoned asteroid field, an ancient surveillance station suddenly activated. Its sensors detected a unique energy signature. The exact same signature recorded on the day the Child of Stars was born. Military analysts immediately confirmed the impossible. The child was alive, and the signal originated from Sector 4. Panic spread through the highest levels of government. Emergency meetings began. Fleets were mobilized. Spy networks activated. The hunt had begun again. Back on the frozen moon, Orion stood beneath a sky filled with stars. He had no idea that emperors feared him. No idea that entire civilizations were searching for him. No idea that fleets were already moving toward Sector 4. He simply stared into the night sky, wondering where he truly belonged. Then suddenly he noticed something. A flash of light, far away, a ship exiting hyperspace. Then another. Then another. Within minutes dozens of ships appeared at the edge of the system. Orion frowned. Sector 4 was supposed to be empty. Nobody ever came here, yet now warships were arriving from every direction. A strange feeling settled inside him. For reasons he couldn't explain, he felt like they were coming for him. And deep within his mind, something ancient suddenly awakened. The moment the first warship entered Sector 4, alarms began ringing across nearby systems. More ships followed, then more. Within hours, an entire fleet had surrounded the region. Massive cruisers, heavy destroyers, planetary assault carriers. For the first time in decades, Sector 4 had become the center of galactic attention. Back on the frozen moon, Daniel stared at the sensor screen. His expression darkened. This isn't good. Orion stood beside him. What are they doing here? Daniel slowly shook his head. I don't know. But deep down, he had a terrible feeling. Nobody sends fleets this large for peaceful negotiations. Outside, dozens of ships moved into formation. Then a transmission arrived. The message was broadcast across the entire system. This is a Galactic Authority operation. The Child of Stars is present in this sector. Surrender the child immediately. Orion froze. The room became silent. Daniel slowly turned toward him. The old explorer finally understood. The fleets weren't here for resources. They weren't here for territory. They were here for Orion. For several seconds neither spoke. Then Orion quietly asked, "What's the Child of Stars?" Daniel sighed. I was hoping we'd never find out. Before he could continue, another transmission arrived. This time the message was far more threatening. Failure to comply will result in military action. Orion looked through the window toward the distant stars. His entire life had changed in a single moment. The answers he had searched for were finally here. But so was danger. Daniel crossed his arms. Well, kid, what now? The old human smiled. Now we find out why an entire galaxy is afraid of a teenager. Far above the moon, alien commanders prepared for battle. Most of them had never seen Orion. Yet they feared him. They feared an old prophecy. A prophecy older than most civilizations. According to ancient records, the Child of Stars would one day bring the end of empires. For centuries, leaders interpreted those words as a warning. A destroyer. A conqueror. A living weapon. Nobody had ever considered another possibility. Meanwhile, Orion sat alone inside the outpost. Questions flooded his mind. Who was he? Where did he come from? Why did everyone fear him? Then suddenly something happened. A sharp pain exploded inside his head. He collapsed to his knees. Images flooded his vision. Ancient stars. Forgotten worlds. Gigantic structures floating between galaxies. Civilizations rising and falling. And voices. Thousands of voices. All speaking at once. Orion screamed. Daniel rushed toward him. Orion. The room filled with strange blue light. Machines began malfunctioning. Lights flickered wildly. Outside, energy storms appeared across the sky. The fleet immediately detected the disturbance. Commanders stared in shock. The prophecy energy signature had activated. The Child of Stars was awakening. Back inside the outpost, the visions continued. Then one image became clear. A massive ancient being appeared before him. Not a god, not an alien, something older, something beyond both. The figure spoke. Child of Stars, you have awakened. Orion stared at the being. Who are you? We are the architects, the first guardians of this galaxy. The being extended its hand. More images appeared. Thousands of years ago, the architects had created a network designed to guide civilizations. At first it brought peace. But over time powerful empires corrupted the system. They used it to control weaker species. Entire civilizations became trapped beneath galactic rule. The Child of Stars was never created to destroy life. He was created to end that control. To restore freedom. The prophecy had been misunderstood from the beginning. Orion opened his eyes. The vision vanished. Daniel was kneeling beside him. Concern covered the old human's face. You okay? Orion slowly nodded. I know why they're afraid. Outside, fleet commanders prepared to launch their assault. Their leaders had already made a decision. The Child of Stars was too dangerous to remain alive. A countdown began. Weapons charged. Attack formations activated. Then Daniel did something nobody expected. He opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. Millions listened. Alien admirals, government officials, military commanders. Every screen displayed the image of a gray-haired human standing beside Orion. Daniel looked directly into the camera. You spent years hunting this kid. You feared him before you even met him. You called him a monster before he spoke a single word. The old explorer paused, then continued. I raised him. I know who he is. He isn't your enemy. Many commanders ignored the speech. Their fear was too strong. Orders were given. The attack began. Hundreds of fighters launched toward the moon. Missiles filled the darkness. Orion looked at the incoming fleet. For a brief moment, he felt anger. The same anger everyone expected from the prophecy. But then he remembered Daniel's words. Family isn't always about where you come from. Sometimes it's about who stays. The anger faded. Compassion remained. Orion stepped outside. Blue energy surrounded him. The sky itself seemed to respond. Every ship detected impossible power levels. The entire fleet stopped firing. Weapons shut down. Engines powered off. Thousands of warships became motionless. Not destroyed. Disabled. No lives lost. No bloodshed. Only silence. Shock spread throughout the fleet. The Child of Stars had defeated them. Without harming anyone. Then a signal erupted across the galaxy. Ancient systems hidden for thousands of years activated. The Architects' network came online. Control centers belonging to corrupt empires shut down instantly. Surveillance systems vanished. Political domination collapsed. For the first time in centuries, countless worlds became free. The prophecy had come true. Empires had fallen, but not through destruction, through liberation. Days later, representatives from across the galaxy arrived in Sector 4. This time they came without weapons. Without threats. Without fear. One elderly alien leader stepped forward. He looked at Orion, then asked the question everyone wanted answered. Why humanity? Out of all species, why did you choose humans? Orion smiled, then looked toward Daniel. The old explorer stood quietly beside him. The answer came instantly. Because when the entire galaxy feared me, they didn't. When everyone saw a monster, a human saw a child. Silence spread through the crowd. Many lowered their heads in shame. For years they had feared a prophecy. But the prophecy had never been their enemy. Fear itself had been. As the sun began setting over the frozen moon, Orion stood beside the man who had raised him. No longer alone. No longer hunted. No longer afraid. And across the galaxy, a new story began to spread. Not a story about a destroyer. Not a story about a monster, but a story about a human who chose kindness when everyone else chose fear. And that story would be remembered for generations. The end.
Thanks for watching. If you love epic sci-fi stories and unforgettable adventures, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to HYF Sci-Fi. Join our growing community, and we'll see you in the next journey beyond the stars.